This time I would like to show you my favorite recipe for banana bread. This bread is soft, every piece melts in the mouth and is full of banana taste. As a bonus, I will show you how I prepared banana muffins from the same batter. Before I start mixing all the ingredients, I want to make sure that I am not missing anything. So what ingredients do we need? Overripe bananas, eggs, butter, all-purpose flour, baking powder, sugar, vanilla sugar. Then for baking we will need a loaf of pan, deep rectangular baking pan, butter for greasing the baking pan, and baking paper or flour for dusting of baking pan. Then we will need also to prepare sugar glaze. For that we need powdered sugar, water, and finally for the decoration we will need dry bananas. Before I start preparing the batter for banana bread, I will prepare a baking pan. First I cut out a baking sheet slightly larger than the pan. Next I grease the pan with butter, then I put baking paper in it. I struggled a bit, but because of butter the paper sticks nicely to the baking pan, so it can be shaped better, and finally the baked bread will not stick to the pan and can be very easily removed from the baking pan. One more step before we start preparing the batter. We turn the oven on and set the temperature. So how to make banana bread batter? First, I prepare bananas. I peel the bananas and mash them. The riper the bananas, the less sugar is needed, and they are mashed easily. Bananas should be mashed by hand, because if you use a blender, you might overmix them. From my own experience, I do not recommend mixing banana in a blender. I pile the bananas so they will brown as little as possible. This process may take approximately 3 minutes. The next step is to beat the eggs. I put the eggs in a small bowl, one at a time. First I break them into a glass, and if the egg is healthy and without a shell, I put it in the bowl. It takes me about 12 minutes to beat 3 eggs with my old mixer. Beaten eggs should be aerated and at least doubled in volume. Next, I beat the butter with sugar. I put the butter in a large bowl and beat it briefly. Then gradually I add sugar and continue beating. After about 2 minutes of beating, I add vanilla sugar and continue beating. It is very important not to overbeat the butter. Usually, fluffy, whipped butter will increase its volume. It took me about 4 minutes to whip the butter. Once the butter is whipped, put the mixer aside, we will not need it anymore. Now I will only need spatula or wooden spoon and a sieve. I sift half of the flour into the bowl with the butter. Then I mix flour with the butter for about a minute, and then I add the second half of the sifted flour. I mix again, and after about 1 minute or 2 I add sifted baking powder. When the butter is mixed with flour and baking powder in the smooth texture, I start adding the mashed bananas. First I mix half of them, and then I add another half. I mix it well and gently. The last step of preparing the banana bread batter is to combine it with the beaten eggs. Again, I gradually add eggs, the first half and then the second. I mix with ease until the texture is smooth. I pour the mixture into the baking dish It is important to spread the batter nicely from edge to edge so that it can form nicely. How do we bake banana bread? Bake the banana bread approximately 55 minutes at 160 degrees Celsius in a hot air fan oven in the middle compartment. The bread should rise slowly. I recommend checking the bread about 10 minutes before the end of baking. That's because not all ovens bake the same. We know the bread is baked when we stick a toothpick into it, it is dry when removed. The color should be brownish golden. When the bread is baked, I remove it from the oven and let it cool for about 5 to 10 minutes. Then I gently lift the baking paper with the bread from the baking pan. I remove the paper and let it cool for at least 20 minutes or longer before sprinkling sugar glaze over the bread and decorating with bananas. Let's prepare sugar glaze. In a small bowl, put the powdered sugar and then slowly add water. I recommend adding first 1 tablespoon of water and then, if the texture is too thick, add another tablespoon of water. The rule of thumb here is less is better. The bread has already cooled down and we can cover it with the prepared sugar glaze. I decorate the bread with sugar glaze in a grid, but you can also spread it over the bread. When the sugar dries, it creates a very pleasant crunchy texture. Finally, I can add dry bananas. Banana bread does not need to be stored in the refrigerator. At room temperature, it should be consumed within 4 days. Ideally, if you can store it in a closed container. If you want to put it in the freezer, it should be consumed within 3 months. Here is the promised bonus. I made muffins from the same batter, but in a smaller amount. I also put the ratio of ingredients here, so this is how I was able to prepare 12 large muffins. I filled paper cups 2/3 full with butter. I baked the muffins in a preheated hot air oven at 170 degrees for approximately 20 minutes. Like the banana bread, I decorated the muffins with sugar glaze and 1 slice of dried banana. If you liked this recipe, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for more posts. I wish you pleasant baking!